Guys, today we're going to talk about a general subject, although it's still related to economic growth and stimulation. But this is just for us South Africans in order to see practically the impact of innovative strategies and then compared to the old ways of doing things. Today we're going to deal mainly with manufacturing companies. Those companies where products are manufactured, started from scratch, raw materials are used, manufactured, go through all the stages until they are completed. And to do all this, they have three basic or rather important production strategies. One is called intermittent production process, whereby the product to be manufactured goes through a lot of processes, from the beginning, from the raw stage of materials, manufacturing, going through other processes until the product is completed. And there's the second one called the mass production process. Mass production is sometimes called specialized or continuous production process. Even on this process also, products get manufactured, but the difference is that in most cases, in this case, products that are manufactured are similar, same type of product. They may differ, but they are the same type of product. So it is a bit quicker system of manufacturing products. And then the batch product manufacturing also would always depend on the machine. You can only put a batch of a certain quantity in a machine to manufacture the products. And then whenever the batch is completed, you put another batch. And then you also have to obviously do measurement, check on the quantities, the quality, and everything. So this is how products are manufactured in a South African context. So there were so many companies that used all these different manufacturing processes. We can take an example on steel manufacturing companies. We're talking companies like Metal. They manufacture all type of steel. You talk about Highfield Steel. They also manufactured all type of steels, and then some steels we imported from Germany, from Finland, and from Japan. And then there were also companies that manufacture radiators. A few years ago, these companies, they were always extremely busy because there's many cars being manufactured, many cars that need new radiators and everything. And then the demand was so high for these products. Textile companies were the ones that were the first to fail to exist in South Africa because they were small scale. There was demand for products, but they were small scale. They were not big as other companies. There were companies like Cap Manufacturing, for bottling companies, beverage companies. They were also using these processes. But when you look at the situation that they are in today, it's totally different than how they were before. They were all very lucrative. They were making profit. They had demand for their products for a very long time. And then by that time, China was nowhere in the business industry, you know. And then as time goes on, China started for the fact that China never even manufactured steel. They bought imported steel from us. They never had steel in any form, you know. So they had steel that they imported from other companies, including us. And then because they are technologically and strategically growing, they brought a lot of change to many companies, including South African companies. For an example, because strategies that they use in it, strategies that I've always spoke about, even in my book I spoke about how they do things, you know, stuff like product demand analysis, product value analysis, you know. So now let's take how they came to the frame in the business industry. All the industries I mentioned, I spoke about, were existent, they're doing well economically in South Africa. But what happened when the Chinese came in the industry? Let's take for an example the small one, the textile manufacturing companies. You know, you go to buy textile, you know, and then it has to go through production processes, the sewing and the knitting, the buttoning, you know, the many aspects that the product has to go through in order to be complete. But they were all going in small different departments, you know, the buttoning, there's a machine for buttoning, you know, the sewing, there's a machine for sewing, um, and many other aspects. The same as the steel manufacturing companies. They had to go through all the processes because they were using old type of machines to manufacture this product, and then they gotta go through all the steps and the areas where they need to be manufactured until they're completed. The same as the cap, you know, the cap. Uh, in one occasion, we visited the plant in Cape Town where they manufactured the cap, you know, that winery cap or distillery cap, you know, in the South African. There they showed us in demonstration how the cap was manufactured. You know, um, to manufacture one cap, they would use a metal of about, you know, 300 millimeters by 300 millimeters to manufacture one cap. And then they go make a picture on the metal, and then it goes into manufacturing, and then it goes into threads. They manufacture threads, and then it goes into coloring, and then from coloring it goes into labeling it as to whether it's going to be uh, brandy or it's going to be wine, whatever they manufacture. But the gentleman even explained to us that, look, our machinery that we're using are very old type. We go through a lot of processes. We're using quite a lot of material for manufacturing one small cap. And then the same as textile, where they manufacture clothes, and then the processes, the machines are old, so you got to go through a lot of processes to manufacture this product, you know. And then when the Chinese came in with their technological skills, they started manufacturing this product. That's when things started getting sold for our companies. The reason being that, like I said, in our case, we manufacture this product going through a lot of processes. In almost all cases, the Chinese would manufacture this product using one machine. It manufactures the textile. After manufacturing the textile, it goes into the drawing, cut the textile, and then it goes through the sewing, it gets there and being sewn. It goes through to, buttoning and any other step using one machine only instead of many processes. So what damage is it doing to us in this case? For us, it takes like 5 days to manufacture 50 products, because we're using a process that takes a long way. Plus the machineries are old, are slow. And the Chinese comes with machinery, a machine that can manufacture, 50,000 products in a week. Whilst in our case, we can only manufacture 500 products in a week. So this, in terms of cost, it came to a point whereby you realize that the Chinese products are much cheaper, very much cheaper than the South African product. If you take the motor radiator manufacturing company, when the South African company was manufacturing radiators and the Chinese came in with their radiators, it was discovered that the cost of manufacturing a radiator in South Africa is more than the selling price of the radiator manufactured in China. So in that case, this is the very important aspect. If you see all businesses closing down, it's because the Chinese has come in with products that are much cheaper, and they are manufactured in mass quantity in a very short space of time. Indeed, South African distributors and other companies realize that it's rather better to buy products in China than to buy products that are manufactured in South Africa, because A, they take too long to manufacture. Secondly, they the machinery that they are being used are too old, and then technologically, you know, the Chinese products are much better manufactured than the South African product, and they are much cheaper than the South African product, which is why you saw the textile companies were closing down. Because, I was listening on TV the other day, the former Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, um, who passed on, may his soul rest in peace. He was so surprised that he went to buy a face cloth, and then he looked at it, and it says made in Taiwan. A product as small as a face cloth, instead of being manufactured in South Africa, was manufactured in Taiwan. It's cheaper to buy it in Taiwan because they much cheaper than the product manufactured in it. The radiators companies, the same case. Even the steel companies, it's the same case. What happened to Highfield Steel? Highfield Steel is no longer here. Closed down because the Chinese people were buying from China, direct from China, at a very low price than the prices that we used to pay in Highfield Steel. The same as ArcelorMittal, which is we used to call ISCO. Not one, if you go on that highway through to Vaal, you can see it along the highway. You can see that it is almost about to diminish. Sooner or later, it's not going to be there anymore, because the Chinese have come up with the quickest way, the cheapest way of making product, which is why my plea is always that we must consider the factors such as performance measurement, product value analysis, product demand analysis, total quality, performance measurement. In today's time, there's no way you can never do things without following these structures, strategies, measuring what you're doing. Make sure you measure what you do. Make sure that the quality of the product it's the best, and then do it right once. So for us as a growing country, I'm talking to us South Africans, it's so crucial, it's so important to look at the far picture. We need a country that's united, that works together, where the leaders are doers and not talkers. We can never do things being divided, which is a scary part of our case. Most countries that are developing, the communities are united, they work together as a country, as a unity. Politics are for politicians. Yes, the government's role is it's pivotal, it's important, but we have to do it ourselves. Just now I was looking at the Chinese. They've got 3 unique trains that they designed for purposes because they in China they don't have space. They don't have any space. So they manufacture these trains. These trains, one is called the light mono train. This is a very fascinating thing. It's in a city called Qingfing. It's a very fascinating. It's slightly built. The rail is slightly built about a few meters above the building. It goes over the buildings, but where there's higher buildings, it goes through into the building, into the flat. It goes through into the restaurant. The people would be sitting in the restaurant. The train would be passing above through the restaurant or the building, and then the people will see it, and then it go over to wherever it needs to go because they do not have space. The second one, quickly, it's called the it's called the Sky Train. Sky Train, it's a very funny one. It's under the rail. It's not above the rail. It's high because of the high height of the buildings. It cannot run stable if it's above the rail. So it runs under the rail, and then above the buildings, and then it's got glass underneath. You can see below whatever's happening below. They say you ride in that train and you got two options. Either you're gonna enjoy it or you're gonna be so scared because you can see what's going on and whatever. And then the last one, they call it the autonomous train. It's like a worm. It's got two coaches. It goes to semi-developed areas, where there are no proper roads. It can turn like a worm. It's got only two coaches, So if people need to go to these areas where there's a little mountain, a little hill, it's got to turn around whatever it needs to turn. It can easily do that. They call it the most clever train. So what causes that for the Chinese is because they need a product to be able to achieve that goal. So they work on what we call a product demand analysis. This is what motivates you to do something because you need to achieve that goal. They're not doing it because just they want to do it for fun, because people need to go through to certain areas and they haven't got space where they can go, how they can travel. So they design these things. So that's where the concept of product demand analysis developed from. But that we can do as a united country, a nation, Those people are like 1.1 billion population, and then, but the concept, the mindset, the goal and the objective is one. There's no deviations. One wants to do this alone. Like in our case in South Africa, we want to be in a GNU government, but you're opposing everything that's entailed in the GNU government, being a political party. What are you measuring there? What do you want to achieve? The people voted for you to improve the country, to economic growth, to eliminate poverty, but you're opposing everything that relates to that. That's a serious challenge. That's a serious challenge for us South Africans. Until we get together as a country, we as a country, get together and say, we want this, and then we're going to do it this way. That's the only way we're gonna do. We cannot work on political basis where some people want this, someone wants that. No, we're not gonna achieve anything. And the world is so much revolving around economic growth. It's not even a problem for South Africa only. Many other countries are facing such challenges. They're working towards achieving them. And then we need to do, there can never be any doers and beggars. No. We as a country, sometimes they say, if you can never do things in a big way, do small things in a big way. I think that's where we need to start. We must stand up and say, listen, we can do it. We can never have leaders who are being investigated. In countries like China and Japan, you don't need that. You cannot, the goal and objective is one. You cannot be say, I'm a leader, I've got qualification, but you are being investigated for fraud, for corruption and everything. No, that's not how it should be. It's about time that we change our mindset, everything, and do things for us as a country. Yes, I agree with investment. Countries can come and invest. But if you get investment, the the company that comes in here employs, companies that come in employs 2 million people. We are a population of over 60 million people. So we can do it. Burkina Faso is starting to do that. They're sacrificing a lot. The government is sacrificing a lot of things. You know? So we have to start as a country, our country that we love so much. We have to start doing our own things, especially our future kids. Don't worry about the rich. The rich are few, they're getting fewer and fewer. The poor are getting more and getting poorer and poorer. That's what we need about to worry about. So as a country, we are gonna make it. We will make it, and I hope we can make it. Thank you.